Rachael Ray is going to be making some pozole, and we're going to be seeing this before on Roger.
Hiya!
Now, let's get started, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
We're gonna make a layered chili red pozole.
Chili. Empezamos mal.
So we're gonna take a couple of cans or one large can of hominy, and we're gonna make a delicious vegetable base for our red pozole or red stew.
Just so we're all on the same page in the beginning of this video, pozole is a Mesoamerican dish. It's a corn-based stew with pork. I'm sure other people also add maybe other types of meat and everything, and there are different versions of this, but this is pretty much the idea. And so far, it doesn't look like we're going to be making it.
The protein in it is going to come from canned beans or dried beans that you can cook off. If you cook your own beans from dry, I put them in a big pot, cover them with 3 inches of water.
A ver. Who's editing this video? She was just in the middle of explaining something and then it cut her off. You know, if we actually compare this to Jack's famous soup.
So I called it garbage stew.
Garbage stew!
He used more fresh ingredients, even though they were a little rotten, than what's going in this because everything's canned.
Let the water come to a full boil, then salt the water. Occasionally when you're cooking beans, you'll have to skim the pot of some of the proteins and solids that come out of the beans. And for flavor, I add a healthy amount of salt, a big fat fresh bay leaf, and 1 onion. Just cut it right in half. You don't even have to peel the sucker, just throw it in there. So any 2 cans and colors of beans you like. I went with red kidney beans and just good old-fashioned pinto beans. You can mix and match any beans you like for this.
And we're gonna be using kidney and pinto beans on top of this. She's making this into a chili, she really is, because normally pozole doesn't include pinto and kidney beans. One little tip though to cooking the beans, if you're gonna be adding them, is to soak them the night before. That way it will take less time the next day to cook them.
For the chilies, we're gonna start with the friendliest of the chilies. We're gonna start with anchos. They have kind of a sweetness to them, and this is where all of the heat lives in chili peppers, is on the inside of the chili pepper with the seeds and the ribs on the inside. So when you strip that out, any chili becomes naturally milder.
This is the first ingredient that is the correct ingredient to use. And it is a good idea to de-seed the peppers. Now the spice on the other hand, ancho chilies are not super hot chilies. Maybe for some people, but they're not. So if you leave a few seeds in, don't worry about it, it's okay.
I took a few anchos and I covered them with an entire box of my vegetable stock. You can use water, so I'm gonna take this vegetable stock with reconstituted dried chilies, put all of it carefully into your food processor, and puree this. I pulse it a few times to get it going, and just let her rip for a bit. Now we have our chili puree. For the soup pot...
Puree? This is not puree. And on top of it, you can see that it wasn't even fully blended up in the blender. That's a big chunk of ancho chili still there. Now Rachel did do a good thing though. You do want to rehydrate the chilies, but a faster way on doing this is to put them over the heat and to bring it up to a bit of a boil. This will help soften them faster. But what you can do to get even more flavor out of the chilies is to actually toast the chilies before you blend them.
Guajillo for texture and flavor. Morita, more for flavor. Árbol for spicy.
I'm gonna start with some olive oil. A little to coat the bottom of the pan. A large onion, or 2 medium. And a couple of fat cloves of garlic. The next chili we're going to use is chili powder. And I'm using 1 tablespoon or a palmful of chili powder.
No! She's using 1 ancho and then she just puts chili powder in this. Pozole is made with chilies. So if you're in a pinch where you cannot get any chilies, dried chilies, fresh chilies, whatever, then you can use a powder. Well, there are various recipes, but this is like really winging the recipe if you have to.
Then we're gonna use 2 buddies that love to go everywhere together in Mexican cooking, coriander and cumin. We want a palmful of cumin and some coriander.
Cumin on top of it. Cumin, which is a spice that I love, I use it a lot in the house, I actually do go through quite a bit of it, does not go in everything and it does not always go in every Mexican dish. That's like saying soy sauce goes in every single Asian dish. It goes in a lot of dishes, but not every single bloody dish.
Salt and pepper, of course.
Ooh, a lot of salt.
And a half a palmful of sweet paprika. So that's a sweet pepper. We're adding all different types of peppers to this.
Pimentón. She's adding sweet paprika. My goodness, this is going the same way as Jamie's butter chicken.
This is my kind of version of a butter chicken.
And where is it? Mexican oregano. About a half a palmful of that. Kind of grind it fresh into your pot. And give this a stir. And toast up that fragrant mix of spice.
You need to get specifically Mexican oregano. There is a difference with the flavor. But if you can't get fresh, then use what you can, get dried, but don't use too much because it can make it smell more like a pizza.
So we're gonna put in a couple of spoonfuls of puree of chipotle and adobo, which will make this really smoky in flavor.
Sí o no? Do you use chipotle in your pozole? Oh, that rhymes, doesn't it? Now, for everyone that doesn't know what chipotles are smoked jalapenos. And the adobo sauce that they're in is not the same adobo sauce that you would see in the Philippines. It's a Mexican adobo. And we need a review on Mexican adobo. It's completely different. Lots of chilies.
Give this another stir and let these onions cook out a bit. And run your knife through it and throw your fresh chilies in. And now we're gonna add our liquids. We're gonna start with a bottle of beer.
Beer?
I said it was vegetarian, I didn't say it was boring.
I wonder what happened to the rest of those little beers. From the moment that she said chili, this has turned into a chili.
We're gonna lift up what's called the fond. In this case, it's just the liquids that started to cook out of the vegetables and our lovely spice blend. But we wanna pick up all those little bits and drippings from the bottom of the pan. We're gonna add in our protein, right? Our red and pinto beans, or they could be black, white, whatever you like.
This is a vegetarian dish and there's no meat going in it. Why add meat to a dish that's supposed to have meat?
Our sweetness from our hominy. And we're gonna add a little tiny drizzle of honey to highlight my puree from our anchos.
Now, if you see the hominy, what she put in, the little white things, it does look a little strange, but that's actually corn.
Because they taste like spicy raisins, and a little bit of honey will really highlight that.
Now, if you don't want this dish to be super spicy, you don't need to be adding the honey. It just means that you don't need to be adding all the chipotle and all the, jalapenos to this dish, because that would just make this dish spicier.
And then we're gonna put in a big can or two small cans. So one 28-ounce or two 14-ounce fire roasted tomatoes. So this is gonna be really smoky and hearty. And then right before we serve, we're gonna add a little lime juice to it to make it kind of pop.
Smoked tomatoes on top of it. She added the chipotles, which are already smoked, and now she's adding smoked tomatoes on top of it. I gather that this is going to be tasting like heavy on the smoke side, really heavy. Now, as for the tomatoes, this is normally not an ingredient that you add to it, although keep in mind there are many different variations and maybe in some places they do add tomatoes.
We put it in a wide, shallow bowl so we could fit more toppings on it. Fritos, very important to put them down first. A little white onion.
No, she's adding corn chips to this. These are snacks. I mean, if you want to add corn tortillas, you can. You can buy them, but normally they're heavily salted, or you can make them yourself. And they're super easy. You get corn tortillas, cut them up into quarters or even smaller pieces, fry them for a few seconds, dry them off, salt them if you want, break them up into smaller pieces if you want, and then you can use them to plate. But not these. This is just out of a bag, industrial CRAP.
A little thinly shaved radish. A little crunchy red cabbage. A little crumbled cotija, queso fresco, a little cheese.
Tortilla, it's not queso fresco. It is a good cheese. If you can get a hold of it, try to use it because it's delicious. If you want to know the similarities, think of feta. It's very similar to feta, but salty.
Some pickled jalapenos.
Oh no.
A little dollop of sour cream.
No. Pickled jalapenos. After all this, everything's out of a can. We use pickled jalapenos on top of it. If you take a look at this, it looks a lot more like nachos than it does a stew.
Some lovely avocado. And a little cilantro. Ta-da!
This is what happens when nobody knows what you're doing and they think it's good. They just start applauding. Now again, I want to reiterate, this was not a review about Rachel. This was a review about the recipe. And if you think I was hard on her, especially hard on the recipe, you should take a listen to this.
No, estoy muy enojada. El pozole no va así. Que smoky pozole. Mis calzones.
Would you eat her pozole?
No, ni aunque me muera de hambre, no, señor.
Claro que no. Para nada. Ugh. Qué asco. Ugh.
It's like dog food.
Hopefully all of you did enjoy this video. You learned a little bit as well and had a bit of a laugh. And if you did, then please be sure to give this video a like and a share. But most importantly, please subscribe to the channel, as it does help my channel out greatly and it does mean a lot to me. And the more we grow, maybe one day we'll be able to do a cooking video with Rachel. Who knows?